is the session on customer strategy equals success. And I'm Anthony Nygren from EMI Strategic Marketing. I'm going to take just a minute to introduce myself and then let everybody here go down the line and introduce themselves so that I don't butcher what their companies do or who they are. EMI Strategic Marketing is a relationship marketing agency. We work with clients in the software industry and focus on identifying and capturing opportunities to improve customer retention, customer acquisition, cross-sell, upsell, basically driving customer lifetime value for our clients. My background is in software and other technology companies working in customer experience, customer success, CRM type roles and functions and strategy. So I'm going to maybe start down at the end with Nick and work our way this way.
Sure. Yeah, great. Hey, everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Nick Maida.
Oops.
I'm the CEO of a company called Gainsight. We help B2B companies like Marketo, Eloqua, Jive, and Informatica reduce churn, increase upsell, and drive customer success. We do that by helping a company bring together all the data they have about their customers, understand which customers are at risk and which ones are opportunities, and then drive more revenue from existing customers. Before this, I was the CEO of another software as a service company called Live Office, which we grew and sold to Symantec. So I've been in the recurring revenue business for a long time. Des?
I'm Dennis Hodges. I actually come from the other end. I'm a customer. Plex is the SaaS ERP provider that we use, and their CEO wasn't able to make it, so he asked me to come. Basically, we're an auto supplier. We make parts for basically every auto manufacturer there is. Dashboards, sunroofs, latches for cars, things like that. But basically, we've had a good experience with our SaaS provider, so I have no problems coming here talking about good things they've done.
Jan?
My name is Jan Eleman. I work for a company called Servoy. And Servoy has a platform as a service which we exclusively sell to ISVs. So we don't sell this to end customers, but to about 500 ISVs. Those ISVs create typically complex business applications with the platform. And I've been asked to join the panel because we have insight inside those 500 ISVs. So we're starting to see some patterns on what works and what doesn't work within those companies.
Hi everyone, my name is Guy Nierpaz. I'm CEO and founder of Tutango. I see many familiar faces in the audience, so I'm not gonna talk too much about myself. Tutango, for those of you that do not know, we call this customer engagement management, and the idea is to take back control of customer lifecycle, understand customers, understand their value, the value that they're creating, and help them go through a successful lifecycle for you as a SaaS business. You'll hear more of my ideas while we'll speak, so I'll
Okay.
to you, Anthony.
Terrific. So if any of you are on Twitter and have been following the hashtag for the conference, you would have seen me maniacally, which is marketing for technology, you would have seen me maniacally tweeting about using the other hashtag CSM, Customer Success Management. I think one of the themes that I took away from a lot of the talks this morning was, cloud is about a business model where you can't just say you're interested in customers and you're focused on customers. It's vital to the success of your business. And if you're not delivering customer value, and if you're not finding a way to balance customer value with value for your company, you're not going to be successful. And so that's, I think, a lot of what we're going to talk about here. But I guess I'd like to start out by asking who in an organization should be responsible for customer success. And Michael's back there smiling because this is a topic. I'm going to give a shout out to the Customer Success Management Forum on LinkedIn, which is a terrific group. And there's an ongoing discussion that has about 30 posts now, more or less on this topic. Who should be responsible for customer success? Maybe we'll start with Nick. You want to?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny. There's this LinkedIn thread. You should definitely read it because I think when you read it, you see every company has a different perspective, and that's the natural thing at the early stages of market where people have different points of view. The one thing I think we can probably all agree on is there's a famous quote by Upton Sinclair. I don't know if anyone remembers, an author from the early 20th century. It said, it's difficult to get someone to believe in something when their salary depends on not believing in it. And so what you really want to do is think about who in your company actually has an incentive. And I think it all comes down to, for example, if it's going to be part of sales, you really have to make sure that sales team has the right compensation to drive that. Obviously, a lot of companies choose to make it part of a separate organization, and the rest of the panel will talk about that. But I really think thinking about compensation, making sure that's aligned with your goals is very important.
Okay, Dennis, do you want to share your point of view of the client company, if you will?
Well, I think it's these guys. I think it starts at the top with an organization, and I really believe that because SaaS has really changed the world in that you don't have this big trailer load of hardware behind you anymore. You've basically uncoupled that, and you're driving a Maserati now. So you need somebody that can help you navigate better. Sales is important. I think it's important that sales is part of it. Product development team. But I think having the leadership, with our relationship with our ERP provider, having the CEO attend and talk to us and hear what we have to say is really helped a lot.
Okay. Jan, you want to jump in?
I think that everybody in the company should be aware and responsible for customer success. And as a CEO within Servoy, we are continuously mapping on, what does customer success mean for everybody within our organization. The customer success means a very different thing for our R&D guys who are building our core product than for our sales guys who are trying to see how they can help customers in becoming more successful. So for everybody it's going to be a different role, but eventually my opinion is that everybody in the company should be involved in that.
And,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Guy, and then I want to ask a little bit of a follow-up, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I think in generic, we all agree that customers are important for the company, and the company should care about customers. And I think there's also another agreement that within the recurring revenue business, recurring value to customers is also critical for the success. But there are kind of practical questions. Who's going to own, who's going to be the leader of the company is going to own customer success? Who's going to be measured based on churn, recurring revenue, upsell, and so forth? I personally think that the role not necessarily available in all companies is called the Chief Customer Officer. Could be the CEO, who volunteers to be the Chief Customer Officer, like the CEO of Workday. He's the Chief Customer Officer, or it could be someone else, which is as important as it could be the CRO, COO, but it's a C-level. And I think Michael and I were chatting about this a little bit earlier. I think the critical change that this kind of customer success, Chief Customer Officer, this is where the debate is, as Nick mentioned, it's about compensation, but I think it's more about responsibility. What I'm basically trying to say is that Chief Customer Officer is responsible for the outcome for a significant portion of the revenue of the company, hence needs to be compensated accordingly, and his team needs to operate in that manner. Which, and some people on the thread there, on the LinkedIn thread, are really kind of concerned with the fact that their performance is going to be measured on business outcome. I think it's a good thing for the business that, that performance is being measured on the outcome, because it kind of makes the business very focused on what should be the outcome. Customer success. What's customer success? Customers are renewing, are referencing our businesses, doing whatever is required to make us a business success.
So I guess Dennis and Jan, I'm curious, what's your take on this idea of Chief Customer Officer? Is that, Dennis, maybe starting with you, do you think it's necessary, unnecessary?
I think it's a value, because I think you basically tied it to the reality of who's compensated for doing this. That is the bottom line. If there's no value in it for someone at a personal level, they're not going to have the passion for it. So I think Chief Customer Officer sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay, and Jan, what's your point of view?
Well, in our case, we don't have that as a separate role. In our case, our licensing model also works such that we make more money if our customer is more successful. So our sales guys are already compensated this way. And then as a CEO, obviously I'm responsible for this eventually, but also our COO, who works very close with our customers, has a heavy role in this.
So in your case, sales has skin in the game for your customer success in essence.
That's right.
And do they provide support? Do they try to get customers up and running and being successful with the software? Or is that a different group that's doing that?
It's a combination. So on the technical side, it's an implementation team that does that, but it's also part of sales in our case.
But are they sort of the point people for making sure that everything is the quarterback, if you will, use the football analogy, to make sure that the customers are getting to where they need to be?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, because they are compensated to be doing that. Right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Nick.
So I want to add one thing on that, and it may be slightly controversial. I think that a lot of it depends on the type of person, but most salespeople, I believe, don't have the right personality and DNA to be aligned to customer success. I bet the people at your company do, because you've hired those people. But I think if you just took like the average salesperson, the average company, and said you're now responsible for your customers' ongoing success, they just don't have the mindset. So what's going to have to happen is either those people get retrained or different people come in. But there's definitely like, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? Is it about just getting a customer to sign a contract, or is it about making them happy and getting value? And those are different perspectives. So
hunter versus
hunter,
gatherer,
exactly.
nurturer.
Yeah, totally.
Right. A different set of capabilities,
Yeah.
probably.
I wanted to add something else. I think also one of the challenges, assuming that you hire the right people and you put them, and they're all the right mentality, they're kind of very pro customers, it's still very hard to be customer centric, right? The reason is that there's a company, when it scales, has multiple departments: sales, marketing, customer success, operations, and so forth. These are all they have their daily marching orders to be successful, and the customer experiences the company as a whole. So there are a lot of misalignments that happen on a daily kind of operational. People are not kind of bad by intention, but it's just hard to make sure that when the customer opens a support case, it gets the same, I would say the same service or the same level of treatment as their sales call or customer success team or implementation team. It's very hard to orchestrate this organization like that, and this is why I think there has to be someone who's making sure that not only there's good intention, but there's also there's excellent execution around making sure that all the parts of the business operate in the right way. Compensation is part of that, but also information, execution, systems, all of that needs to put in place, strategy, all that.
So, I mean, a simplistic example might be, the customer support team is a measure that's used to evaluate their efficiency is how many calls do they handle, what's their resolution time, how quickly are tickets closed. That may or may not correlate with customer success or a positive customer experience that leads to strong lifetime value.
Right. The point being made was that usually sales is compensated differently, but I think also other departments.
Yeah, sure.
I think kind of all these misalignments are very apparent for customers when they interact with a company. At the end of the day, they interact with a single entity and they get various types of kind of experiences, and this impacts the customer from this angle. So the company needs to think to kind of adopt the mindset of the customer's experience and think from the outside in versus the inside out and provide this experience. This is kind of a very big challenge. I think everyone who've experienced, I'm a new immigrant to the U.S. and I had great experience with Xfinity, and I'm kind of joking, but you talk to the billing department and you talk to the support department and you're trying to order something online, you get 3 different answers, and as a customer, you're not that happy, right? So it's the same thing with with the B2B businesses.
Sure. So I think all of that is a good segue into my next question, which is how do you measure customer success? The amount of how well your company is doing delivering that customer value. Maybe Jan, you want to start this one?
Yep, sure. So in our case, because for ISVs it takes a lot of time to get up to speed, it is very difficult to find the correct metrics to be able to measure that. So what we've developed over the past 10 years is a program that we call the Assurance Program. And the reason we call it that way is because there is a guarantee for our ISVs that if they follow that process, they're going to be very successful. So we've measured meticulously over time, and I think measuring is one of the key things that a lot of ISVs don't do well enough. If you follow a certain process, we know that an ISV will have success with his product. And actually that requires a lot of discipline on both ends of the game. So we also require discipline from our customers. And we tell them upfront, if you're not prepared to follow this process, then we are not going to do business. And the reason we do that is because at the end we know if they do not follow that process, they're not going to be successful. But that also means that we are not going to make money. So it sounds like, we're Dutch, we're very blunt. And this also sounds very blunt. But we prefer to tell them that upfront than to be 1 year into a game with an ISV finding out that because they were not following a certain process, because they let the techies, which is a challenge with a lot of ISVs, they let the techies just have it their own way, and then after a year you find out they went in the wrong direction, they didn't follow the process that can guarantee success. So in our case it requires discipline on both ends, and we will escalate immediately if on either our end or on their end people involved in the process and with very clear definitions of responsibilities are not being followed, because we're deeply interested in our ISVs becoming very successful.
Okay. Guy, you want to go next?
Yeah, I would say 2 points. Obviously, the outcome of customer success is growth or decline in recurring revenue, churn rates, and so forth. I think, but these are all annual contracts come once a year, or a 3-year contract once every 3 years, and so forth. So that's kind of the business outcome, which is extremely important. CEOs, board members, CFOs look from these areas. I think companies have to adopt leading indicators into customer success. We call this customer health. Other companies call it in different ways, but it's a way to kind of calculate the current status of the customers versus where they should have been from their success perspective. Various measures, I'm not going to get into that, but it's very important to keep track of that and to have a clear point in every point in time. And the last point that I want to make, and I think Jan, this correlates to what you're saying, and I like the approach that customers are also responsible for their success, because I think this is a very good way to put this, because in B2B specifically, customer success is a complex thing. There's the buyer who bought the software for solving a problem, but in your case there are developers who are involved, and they also have their thoughts, and there's project managers, and whatever the complexity is, I think it's also important to clarify with the customer upfront what is success for you. Some products it's very simple. I'm buying a marketing technology, so I want to have 2,000 leads per month. That's success to me. If I'm buying your product, it's probably defined a little bit differently. I'm being able to ship an ERP product within a year or less, or whatever the time frame is, and it's successful, I can sell it. Whatever it is, I think it's very important to match the way customer perceives success to how you as a company measure success, and correlate that. Then you can identify the gaps, and you can take actions.
Okay, so I think what I picked up on what you said, Guy, which to me related to what Jan said, was that it's sort of operationalizing the measures. You can have these high-level measures about revenue, retention rate, but that doesn't help you manage day-to-day. Is that
That's
fair?
right, yeah. Yep.
Nick, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to add, just like in terms of specific measurements to evaluate what Guy just talked about, what we found is, so retention, we talked to lots of chief customer officers, and everyone measures retention. It's backward looking for most businesses, though, as Guy said. And also, unless you have a month-to-month cadence in your business, like a monthly subscription, retention, you find out about issues way too late. So the other 4 things we see people do are measure adoption, obviously. So are they using your stuff? Are they using your new features? Is a wide group of users in your company using it? Are they engaged regularly? Influence. So what's your depth of relationship with a customer? Do you just have one person in that company who's your advocate, who if they leave, then you're kind of in trouble? Satisfaction, so that's measurement of like, what do they like you, NPS, that kind of thing. And then evangelism, are they going out and telling other customers? Are they coming to speak at a conference on behalf of vendor? Very nice of you. And so, what are they doing in the community? Are they giving references? So when you put them all together, RAISE, so if you do all that, you should get a raise, actually. So those are the five things we see people often do.
So, but are you managing to things like, like NPS scores, or whether somebody has been to a conference?
Totally,
or...
like like a lot of our customers, and we all track all those 5 dimensions. Whether there's speaking at your events, what's the latest NPS, how many relationships do you have in the account, are they using your stuff on an active basis and all your new features, and then are they staying with you, which is retention.
So it's a sort of a different way of measuring.
It's just the
customer
full.
health.
It's what Guy said, just a little more detail.
And Dennis, from the perspective of, I guess I'm interested both in terms of how your software company Plex works with you, but also as a CIO, what are you looking at from a measurement and metric perspective to make sure that your organization is getting the most value out of the software?
Well, I think first of all is a good, honest relationship, a partnership with the software vendor, because, I get between 100 and 200 cold calls a week, or emails from somebody trying to sell me something. And, when you narrow it down to the people you really want to work with, the key to me is that relationship. And, I'm not the only person that would be glad to come and talk to people about Plex, to other people. That they are, I would say, I'm not quite old enough to have been at Woodstock, almost, but the closest I've ever been to a love-in is at one of the Plex user conferences, because people love their software and they love the head of development, which is not a normal occurrence. I've been to ASUG with SAP, and I would say it was not quite the same thing there. But they are big believers in community, and that I pay for changes to be made. About half the changes I pay for, other people use as well. But I realize that half the changes that I use are being paid for by somebody else. So the community is there, that it's an investment that we all see as a positive. But, trusting each other, and basically, we open the books to what we need to do, what they need to do, customer advisory board, community. Those are things that you can do. And like I say, we've unhitched that trailer called hardware with a SaaS model, but they have a new hook. The more we use of their software, the harder it is for us to get off of it eventually. So I think that's your goal, and retention and use of your software. I agree with Jan. Don't go in there and just say, we'll sell you whatever you want, because they'll never get what they need in that. But if you can come in with this is how we do it, we'll stick to our guns. That was a big change for our original, when we spun off from Delphi, which was a much larger organization. We went from SAP, where the consultants came in and said yes to everything and delivered nothing, to the point where, basically they came in and said, this is how we do it. It offended people. It offended some of our end users to start with. But now, these are the same people that are championing the software. So I think it stick to your guns and develop that relationship.
But so, again, I guess that's really interesting from the perspective of your relationship with your software vendor. Internally, are there measures that you're looking at in terms of how much the software is being used and the value that your organization is getting out of it, or is the vendor's Plex reporting that to you, or how does that work?
Well, basically, it's a combination. I have an entire group that's basically business analysts, and they work with the different functions in the business to understand their requirements. And then our first thought is to go to see what we can do in our ERP system. That's our first choice. So we do some measuring, but it's mainly it's what we see as an experience. We don't have any formal metrics of, we're adding 1,400 people to our change system. Well, that was a nice note to know, because that doubled our user count. But it wasn't something that we were actually going out and measuring directly.
Okay. So I guess that your reference to business analysts is, again, a nice transition into my next question, which is if you can, I'd be interested to hear a couple of examples, or an example from each of you about how you or a company that you work with has used analytics, customer insight to make a decision or take an action that increased value. Maybe starting with Jan, do you want to
Sure.
field that one?
Yep. Let me think of a good example. I think a good example is a company called Choices Software. Choices Software was a traditional ISV. They have a product for the insurance market. So roughly it's a CRM with document management. If you're insurance, you need to create a lot of documents with the insurance policies, and you need a CRM to manage all of the process. And they started doing SaaS 10 years ago, although they did not believe in SaaS. They said, SaaS, we sell to insurance guys, they're old-fashioned, they want well, you guys know the stories. So eventually they said, no, let's try it out, and they decided to try it out and to meticulously start measuring everything. And they came to me and they said, Jan, you know a lot about SaaS pricing, what should we do? And I said, I don't know. It's so dependent on your market, on your product, on your offering. I think the best is to try a couple of models out, and that's what they started doing. So they started putting up free trials, they started doing A/B testing in the free trials, do it a shorter period of time, do it a longer period of time, and eventually they found out that by now and then opening up the full feature set to people that were not paying for it, they were getting a better conversion rate. So I thought it was a very interesting insight that they didn't know and I didn't know, but simply by doing it and by measuring it, they found out, give them the free version, then for a couple of days give them the most advanced version of your product, and then shut it down again. Your users will start calling you, this feature just went away. And then you can easier upsell them to, and these are statistics, I didn't make this up. And in their case, it worked very well. So they're continuously doing this. So they don't have, a lot of ISVs come to me and say, do you have this one advice so I can be highly successful? Well, that doesn't exist anymore. You have to try out things on a continuous basis in terms of pricing, in terms of freemium models and everything else.
Nick, you want to
Sure.
go
Yeah.
next?
Yeah. So Marketo is a customer of ours. They most of you guys know they do marketing automation software. Just filed to go public recently. They they have a customer success team, and obviously in any customer success team, a big challenge is you want to find out about issues when you can still do something about them. And what I think a lot of businesses have found over the years is if you call a customer at the renewal time and you find out issues, it's way too late. So they use some of our technology, honestly, along with a lot of their best practices, to then identify what were the signs of customers early in the cycle that might be a risk and kind of an early warning for that customer being dissatisfied based on usage and survey feedback and things like that. And then they reached out to them and found lots of customers that they might not have been able to save otherwise. And then now, what's really awesome, I think all these types of initiatives is that you then put your toe in the water and then you jump into the pool. Now they've got all this data about their customers, about community engagement and reference activity and sales and billing, and then trying to build that across their whole company, across sales and marketing and customer success to get that mythical 360 view of the customer. And so that's what they're doing now with us. So.
Okay, and Guy?
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time on customer analytics. Our approach mainly is we help our customers define what is being called customer journeys, and then kind of the journeys have segments: the free trial segment, the onboarding segment, the ongoing, and so forth. And basically the analytics is about to identify kind of risks and opportunities ahead of time to take action. That's kind of the philosophy of what we do, and I can share with you a lot of stories, but I think interesting story I heard from a customer. I was last week at the Cloud Analytics event in New York, and I met with a CFO of a conductor. It's a SEO platform. I don't know if you guys are using it, but it's a pretty successful SEO platform. And one of the things that he mentioned that they've learned that one of their risks of the business was that the SEO guys are it's a job on demand. And when companies hire an SEO expert, 3 months later gets a bigger check from another company, or whatever time passes, he moves to another company. So they've tried to kind of identify those moments that happen, and when it happens, their champion is leaving, they're basically come into the director and offer a replacement until you figure out when you are going to hire a new one. And basically they tighten the relationship, and they save the customers at a very critical point in time. and they win them for life, if you will. That's kind of the model. And the key was to actually tie the analytics of, okay, so there's drop in usage. What does it mean? Why does it happen? What can we do about that? And then take action. And they kind of build a model which kind of creates more revenue for them, because on the replacement piece, they're keeping their software, they're putting some people in place, but they're not trying to make money, just trying to make sure that this hump where there's a risk and the customer is going to go away when, and they're kind of putting some interim solution, and they're kind of keeping those revenues on board. And one of their challenges, of course, is that when they are a business at scale, so being able to do this in a very scalable manner requires them to have the analytics to get the alerts ahead of time and so forth. I think there are many ideas of how you could use analytics. I think the industry is very, very young in that. I think kind of everyone is talking about predictive analytics, predictive signals, and actually building technology. I think if you're about to raise money in Silicon Valley, just name the word big data, and you're probably gonna get a check. But I think it's taking this relationship and tying that into data and making informed decision in a timely fashion. That's the basic of it. It's pretty straightforward and simple. We just need to start thinking about this way. And I think there are tons of examples. Actually, again, encourage you to read Michael's forum. You'll read a lot of examples that people kind of post there around this concept.
Okay, good. So what I find personally interesting about that one is that it highlights the fact that the data is terrific, and I love data. Analyzing data is vital, but you always need that human component, the people that will understand the data or will model it or know how to manipulate it so that you can test or develop the test that's going to get to the result that's going to improve the business. I wanted to go out to the audience here, the folks out there, and see if any of you had any questions for the panel. Yeah, over there.
Yeah, to Dennis. When I talk to SaaS vendors, one thing they worry about with customer retention is that there's less lock-in. In the on-prem world, you bought all that hardware, the big license fee, you feel really locked in. In the SaaS world, people say, hey, they can ship whatever they want. You said, though, the more they use, the more they remain locked in. Do you feel more or less locked in through the SaaS model? Does it matter to you?
As long as they're delivering, I'm glad to be locked in. If they're not delivering, then I think we always have options. My predictive analytics are a little different. Being originally from Texas and living in Detroit, the predictive analytic is howling. Are the customers howling for something? And my customers are the end users of the company, and I hear them howling for more from what our ERP providers, the lagging indicators from my Detroit side, which is a drive-by shooting. That basically when it didn't work, I hear about it later. So but no, I think that you're dead right. Is that but an ERP system does have some lock into it. That because you've got all the data in it, you've got all your processes built into it, and that's what we've really been on the journey in, is to tie our processes in to the system. But it does keep them on their toes more, and we're glad to keep them there.
So I mean,
It's a bit less lock-in, you think, but there's still plenty of lock-in.
I think there's still plenty of lock-in, and like I say, as long as they recognize that and they deliver according to that, then we're in good shape.
it seems like it goes back to where I started, and I was talking to Dennis about this at the beginning. Software as a service, it puts the emphasis on service and customer success, and it's sort of an opportunity and a threat. If you can deliver on that expectation and build the trust, you have the opportunity to build a stronger relationship. If you don't, there's not that underlying those underlying threads. Yeah, Kyle?
I think kind of three words here. One is SaaS is a new relationship, right? SaaS cloud, the recurring revenue. It's a new relationship business. Just so, and I think two other words is one is choice, and I think kind of SaaS enables the buyers to have choice. And what the SaaS vendors need to gain is control, right? I mean, these are the things, right? There's new relationship, customers have choice. Lock-in is not strategy anymore. You cannot go with a lock-in. And if you come in with a lock-in model, even if you've built all your processes and all your data in, someone will come up with a new version that can import very seamlessly your data and get this. So you have a choice that keeps your vendor on their toes, which is good. I mean, we as vendors, we want to be on our toes because it gets us much better. And what we're looking to do is gain control. Try to figure out a way to operate in this model. How can we manage this relationship while customers have choice and we need to control the outcome? So that's kind of that's the new mechanics, and I think it's good because it's the first time in a long time of kind of this relationship history that it's a win-win relationship. If the customer is successful, the vendor is successful. If the customer is not successful, the vendor will not be successful. It's a good thing. No shelfware, kind of no big pay cuts, paychecks at the beginning of the transaction just because you were able to push the box over the fence. It's about creating the value, sustaining the value, and so forth.
And Jan, I think that touches on something that you and I talked about, which is this idea of balance, the balance between value for the customer and value for your business.
And actually, I believe that with SaaS, the lock-in is bigger, so and much bigger. And the reason is that with a SaaS product, in particular, if you integrate well with other providers. So a traditional ISV used to build as much functionality as possible to create lock-in, so just increase the functionality and get a better lock-in. The modern ISV focuses on what he's really good at, just the 20% that he really understands very well, and leaves the other 80% that is boring for him to his competitors, but integrates very well with them. Like, for example, why today would you build a financial package where you can integrate with lots of them? And if you integrate very well with a lot of them, eventually you have a customer that has your product and has maybe 50 integrations of your product with the other technologies that they're having. And the last thing they will ever replace then is you, because you're sitting in the middle of all these integrations. So software vendors can create bigger lock-in with their customers, although the perceived lock-in may be much lower.
So, but I think, Jan, to your point, one thing in the past was you had to have the logos. It was kind of a one-to-one relationship. I have a question. How many kind of file sharing applications do you think there exist in a single enterprise? I assume that most enterprises have Dropbox, Box, Microsoft something, and something else and so forth, and it's a kind of a matter of who gets more value from this vendor, right? So it's not just being installed and being there, it's also getting more out of this vendor. The fact that Dropbox and Box are in the same company, the question is who's getting more out of the spend on file sharing, collaboration, and all that. So I think kind of it's just getting in is simpler, much simpler, but getting substantial revenue out of that is very important as well. So I think it's a point.
I think part of it, though, is also not all SaaS businesses are the same. So actually, you brought up a great example. Like, I think user productivity and user tools are very low threshold to changing. Like you said, Box, Asana, Google Drive, etc. Business process applications like Plex or Viva or Salesforce. Gosh, I mean, I love Salesforce, but does Salesforce have the best, fastest CRM user interface out there? And probably not anymore, right? And hopefully it's going to get better. But is Salesforce totally integrated into everything? The way people run their businesses? Yes. So is it hard to switch off Salesforce? Totally. So I think it's a little bit of, is it integrated in your business process, or is it a end user tool that changes the friction?
Yeah, it's a good example. But I think what we're starting to see is, for example, applications that offload out of Salesforce.
That's a good point. Yeah,
and
subsets of it.
And then instead of buying the 120 license, companies buy the 50 license out of Salesforce and offload some of that into other applications. So I think Salesforce is losing. So they are in the integration hub, but they're used just as the integration hub, and the rest is being used by other vendors. So Salesforce is losing a market share there. So this is why I think that if they're not going to fix their user experience, they will lose market share in some use cases, I assume.
But their lock-in is tremendous, because 10 years ago, if you buy Salesforce, and they've been around for 10 years, and you didn't like them, then you would just switch away the next week. We download your data, put it in another CRM. But now you've built Salesforce, then you buy your stuff, which is integrated with Salesforce, you buy some advertising platform, which is integrated. Eventually, you're running 10 products around your Salesforce implementation, and then if you don't like Salesforce anymore, you're like, I have to replace 11 integrations and Salesforce if I don't like them anymore.
Yep.
So-
They've created
Yeah,
a fantastic login.
But
So-
I think it's a point in time. But
So, sorry, I think the next panel and the moderators are gonna kill me if I don't, stop. So, thank you all, very much. And thank you for coming.